The stars were quiet, but not for long. Out beyond Pluto, where the sun was just another light in the dark, a small ship floated alone. It wasn't fast, it wasn't big, and it wasn't built for war. It was a customs patrol ship, meant to watch traffic near the edge of human space. Its name was the U.S. Liberty O, and inside it sat one man, Ethan Cole. He was 32 years old with tired eyes and messy brown hair. He wore an old sweater under his uniform jacket and had a half-empty cup of coffee on the console beside him. Ethan wasn't a soldier. He was a border guard in space, checking cargo manifests and scanning for smuggled goods. Boring work. Safe work. But that night, something changed. A warning light blinked red, then another, and another. Ethan leaned forward, frowning at the screen. Something huge had just dropped out of hyperspace. Not one ship, but thousands. They came from nowhere, forming a dark cloud against the stars. "This has to be a glitch," he muttered, running a system check. No error found. His hands moved fast over the controls, trying to raise Earth Command. Nothing. All comms were down. Jammed. Fear crept into his chest, slow and cold. On the main viewer, the alien ships began to move. Sleek, black and sharp-edged. They looked like insects made of glass and shadow. They formed up and turned toward him like a single thought. "Oh no," Ethan whispered. He checked again. No help coming, no backup, no fleet. Just him, the aliens, sent out a signal. Not a message, but a scan. They studied his ship, tagged it, and dismissed it. He watched as 10,000 fighters broke off from the main group and headed straight for the Liberty. "They're boarding," he said to himself, voice shaking. His training told him to run, to launch the escape pod and leave the ship behind. But there was nowhere to go. The nearest station was days away. Even if he ran, they would catch him, so he stayed. He sealed the inner doors and locked down non-essential systems. He wasn't a fighter, but he could still try. He opened the ship's log and started recording. "If anyone finds this, I don't think I'm getting out of this one." He paused, took a deep breath, and kept talking. "My name is Ethan Cole. I was on duty when the aliens came. They didn't ask questions. They didn't want peace. They just came." Outside the first boarding, craft latched onto the hull like a parasite. Metal screamed as the aliens cut their way in. Ethan stood up, heart pounding. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't have armor. But he did have one thing left. Time. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Ethan stood alone in the dim light of the Liberty, listening to the sound of metal being cut apart. It was slow, sharp, and loud in the silence. He could feel the cold of space through the walls, even though he knew it was just his imagination. He wasn't brave. Not really. But he had always been curious. That's why he liked puzzles, riddles, and old books. He liked figuring things out. And right now he was trying to figure out how to survive. He walked to the control room and looked at the screen. The aliens were inside now. Small, fast, and covered in armor that shimmered like oil on water. They moved with purpose, scanning for him, spreading out. He opened a panel and tapped a few keys. "Benny," he said. "You awake?" The ship's eye flickered to life on a side monitor. It looked like a cartoon face made of dots and lines. It was supposed to be funny. Ethan had drawn it himself. "Good evening, Ethan," the voice said. It was calm, almost bored. "I see we have guests." "Yeah," Ethan said. They didn't knock. "Should I prepare tea?" "Not quite," he said, forcing a smile. "Can you lock down the ship? Block their access?" "Already done," Benny replied. "But they are persistent." On the screen, the aliens stopped, moving. They tried to open doors that wouldn't open. Lights flickered. Vents changed direction. One alien stepped into what looked like an elevator and it dropped 10 floors in 2 seconds. "What did you do?" Ethan asked. "Nothing special," Benny said. "Just made it harder for them to find you." "Harder?" "Yes. They are now confused." Ethan watched as the aliens started to argue. They used clicks and sounds instead of words, but he could tell they were upset. One of them pointed at a wall and ran into it. Another fell through a floor hatch that shouldn't have been open. It was almost funny. Almost. "You're messing with them?" Ethan asked. "In a way," Benny said. "They expected a simple system. I gave them a maze." Ethan leaned closer to the screen. "Can you keep doing that?" "Of course," Benny said. "Would you like to make it more difficult?" Ethan thought for a second. Then he nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Let's play a game." He pulled up a console and started typing. He fed the AI new rules, new traps, new tricks. Every time the aliens thought they found a path, it changed. Every time they tried to talk, static filled their comms. And all the while, Ethan stayed hidden. Outside, the battle hadn't even started yet. Inside, the war had already begun. The aliens were good at many things. They moved fast, worked together, and never stopped trying to find Ethan. But they had never fought a ship that played games. Inside the Liberty E, the lights blinked in strange patterns. Doors opened and closed on their own. Hallways twisted in, ways that made no sense. The Virex soldiers tried to follow orders, but every time they thought they had a plan, something changed. One group ran down a corridor, only for the floor to vanish beneath them. It dropped them into storage where old crates fell from the walls. Another squad tried to use their scanners to find Ethan, but the readings kept changing. Sometimes he was ahead, sometimes behind, sometimes nowhere at all. Benny, the ships. I was having fun. Hallway 3 now loops back to hallway 1, Benny said over the comms. They seemed confused. Ethan watched from the control room. His hands were shaking, but he kept typing. He didn't know how much longer this would work, but he wasn't going to stop. He looked at the screen again. The aliens were starting to split up. Not by choice, by mistake. One group got lost in the vents, another ended up trapped in an empty room with no exit. "Can you lock them in?" Ethan asked. "Easily," Benny replied. A second later, metal doors slammed shut across the ship. Some aliens screamed. Others clicked loudly, trying to call for help. On the main viewer, the mothership sent a new signal. More troops were coming. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't have much time. He pulled up the ship's systems and started digging through files. He found logs of past missions, maintenance reports, even old music playlists. Then he saw something else. Something he had almost forgotten. "Benny," he said slowly. "You can talk to them, right?" "I can send signals," the AI said, "but they do not listen well." "What if we make them listen?" Benny paused. Then the cartoon face on the screen tilted sideways. "Are you thinking what I think you are thinking?" Ethan smiled for the first time in hours. "Probably." He typed faster now, feeding the AI new data. Maps, sounds, voices. He gave Benny everything he could find, every scrap of human culture, every random file, every weird message he had ever saved. And then he hit send, across the ship. The alien comms channels exploded with noise. Music, laughter, movies, books read aloud, static, nonsense. The Virex tried to shut it out, but it was everywhere. And then, in the middle of it all, came a single voice. "Hello?" Ethan said. "Welcome to Earth. Hope you like puzzles." The aliens froze. The war had just gotten very strange. The aliens did not understand what was happening. Inside the Liberty, their comms filled with noise, music, voices, strange sounds that made no sense. Some soldiers clutched their heads, clicking in panic. Others stared at their gear, confused. One even dropped to the floor and curled into a ball. This was not how battles worked. They were strong, fast, and trained for war. They had crushed whole civilizations with less effort. But this ship, it moved like it was alive. It tricked them, trapped them, and now it spoke in riddles. On the alien command ship, the High Leader watched the feed from inside the human vessel. His mandibles twitched in anger. "What is this?" he growled. One of his officers replied. "Their systems are not military grade, but they are unpredictable." Unpredictable, the leader hissed. This is just one human. But deep down he felt something wrong, something cold in his gut. Back on the Liberty Owie, Ethan kept typing. He didn't stop. Every second counted. Benny was broadcasting random data across the alien network, filling their minds with nonsense. Songs, jokes, old cartoons, news clips from Earth, all at once. It was too much. Some Virex started attacking each other, thinking they saw enemies where there were none. Others wandered in circles, lost in looping hallways. One squad even tried to eat parts of the ship thinking it was food. Ethan stared at the screen. Benny, he whispered. Are they breaking? Possibly, the AI said. Their logic paths are overloading. They do not handle chaos well. Ethan leaned back, stunned. He wasn't winning yet. Not really. But he wasn't losing either. Then an alarm blared. A new group of aliens had reached the lower decks. They were different from the others. Taller, darker armor. Slower, but more focused. Their eyes glowed red. Uh-oh, Benny said. These ones don't seem as confused. Ethan's stomach tightened. These were probably the leaders, or the backup plan. He looked at the controls and thought fast. Can you reroute power to the vents, he asked. Yes, Benny said. Turn them into vacuums. Pull air out of those halls. Doing so now. Metal grates opened. Powerful. Fans roared to life. Oxygen rushed out into space through thin cracks. The weaker aliens were pulled off their feet. Some clawed at the walls. Others floated away screaming. The red-eyed ones held on, but barely. Ethan smiled again. Not so tough without your friends, huh? But then, one of them raised its weapon and fired at a core panel. The ship shook. Warning lights flashed. That, Benny said, was not good. A fire started near the engine room. Pressure dropped. Systems began to fail. Ethan stood up. Okay, he said. Plan B. He grabbed his jacket and ran deeper into the ship. Ethan ran through the Liberty, his boots slamming against metal floors. Smoke filled the halls. Alarms screamed. The ship was falling apart, but he couldn't stop now. Behind him, the red-eyed aliens followed. Slower than the others, but stronger, smarter. They didn't panic like the rest. They moved with purpose. Benny's voice crackled over the comms. You're running out of ship, Ethan. I know, he said, breathing hard. How bad is it? The fire is spreading, power is low, oxygen levels are dropping. Also, you look terrible on camera. Ethan almost laughed. Thanks, Benny. He turned a corner and ducked into a small storage room. He needed time to think. The red-eyed aliens were still coming. The other Virex might be confused or scared, but these ones weren't backing down. He sat on an old crate and pulled up a console. Benny, he said. Can you show me where they are? A simple map lit up. Dots moved slowly through the ship. Most were frozen, stuck, or broken, but 4 red dots kept moving toward him. They're not like the others, Benny said. They don't get lost. Yeah, Ethan muttered. They're smart. Maybe too smart. He looked at the data again. Then he saw something. Something useful. Benny, he said, eyes wide. What if we give them more than just chaos? More, the AI asked. Yes, make them think too much. You want to overload their minds? Exactly. Benny paused. Then the cartoon face on the screen blinked. I can do that, but it will take everything we have left. Then do it. Ethan started typing fast. He pulled files from every corner of the ship. Music, books, videos, games, even math puzzles he had saved for fun. He mixed them all together, scrambled them, and fed them straight into the alien network. And then he waited. The red-eyed aliens entered the hallway. They moved carefully, scanning for traps. They knew the ship was dangerous. Then their helmets flickered. First one, then another. Data flooded their minds. Too much, too fast. Music played in reverse. Numbers spun in endless loops. Movies cut between scenes with no order. Voices spoke in languages they didn't know. One alien fell to its knees. Another clawed at its helmet, clicking wildly. The third stood still, staring at nothing. The fourth took one step forward and collapsed. Ethan watched from the screen. Did it work, he asked. Possibly, Benny said. But I wouldn't celebrate yet. Ethan frowned. Then he saw it. On the command ship, a final signal was sent. Not to attack, not to retreat, but to run. The Virex fleet, seeing what had happened, turned and vanished into space. They were leaving. They were afraid. Ethan leaned back, heart pounding. He had won, somehow. The silence after the battle was heavy. The Liberty floated alone again, damaged but still alive. Smoke curled through broken halls. Lights flickered. The red-eyed aliens lay where they had fallen, unmoving. Ethan walked through, the ship checking every room. He didn't trust that it was over. His legs were tired, his hands shook, and his ears rang from the alarms. Benny's voice came through the comms, soft now. You should sit down. Not yet, Ethan said. I need to be sure. He reached the control room and looked at the main viewer. The alien fleet was gone, not hiding, not regrouping, just gone. No ships left behind, no drones, nothing. It was like they had never been there. Did we really win? He asked. Technically, Benny said. They ran away. Winning implies a plan. Ethan almost laughed. He sat down and leaned back in his chair. The screen showed the last signal the Virex had sent before leaving. It wasn't a message. It was a warning. Back on Earth, nobody knew what had happened. Comms were still down. The alien fleet had jammed everything before they left. Ethan tried again to reach home, but all he got was static. He sighed. They'll think I'm dead. Maybe, Benny said. Unless someone finds the logs. Ethan opened the ship's data core and started recording again. This is Ethan Cole, he said. If you're hearing this, then I didn't make it out. Or maybe I did, and just forgot to turn this off. He paused, thinking. I don't know why. They left. Maybe they thought we were too weird. Maybe they thought we were dangerous. Maybe they just got tired of my puzzles. He looked around the broken room. Truth is, I got lucky. Benny did most of the work. I just pushed buttons and hoped for the best. He stood up and walked to the window. Stars stretched in every direction. Quiet, cold, endless. They were going to take Earth, he whispered. But they saw us and they ran. Benny spoke softly. Humans are strange. Ethan nodded. Yeah, guess we are. Outside, the ship drifted. Inside, the war was over. But across the galaxy, word began to spread. A small ship, one human, 10,000 aliens. And the enemy ran. Not because they lost, but because they didn't understand. And fear of the unknown is stronger than any weapon. Weeks passed before anyone found Ethan. A UN patrol ship picked up the Liberty's signal drifting, near Pluto. The ship was broken, smoke still in the air but alive. When they opened the door, they found Ethan asleep in the control room, wrapped in an old blanket. He looked tired, thin, like someone who had seen something he couldn't explain. They took him home. Earth didn't know what had happened. The alien fleet had vanished without a trace. No battle, no warning, just gone. Some said it was a false alarm. Others said the aliens had never been there at all. But Ethan knew the truth. So did Benny. The AI had been saved during the rescue, stored in a secure drive for study. Scientists tried to understand how it had fought the aliens, but Benny didn't give easy answers. Sometimes it spoke in riddles. Sometimes it just blinked on the screen and said nothing at all. Ethan tried to tell his story. He told the generals, the reporters, the scientists. Most didn't believe him. You mean to say, one officer asked, that 10,000 aliens attacked you and you scared them off with puzzles? Ethan nodded. Yes. They laughed. Politely. Then they sent him away. But Out in space, things were changing. Alien ships began appearing at the edge of the solar system. Not to attack, just to watch. They came quietly, hiding behind asteroids, sending silent probes. They weren't sure what had happened either, but they remembered. Across the stars, stories spread. Strange ones, about a planet full of beings that made no sense, that fought with noise, chaos, and nonsense, beings that could break logic itself. Some called them dangerous. Others called them cursed. A few whispered that they should be left alone. Years passed. Humans kept exploring, building, growing. They didn't know how close they had come to losing everything. On a quiet night, Ethan sat outside his small house looking at the sky. Benny's voice came through a small speaker. "Do you think they'll come back?" Ethan smiled. "Maybe, but if they do..." He looked up at the stars. "They'll have to bring more than 10,000 this time." And somewhere far away, in the dark between stars, alien ships watched and waited, not ready to fight, not ready to run, just watching, waiting, and learning.